Hi, my name is Jonathan. Most of you will know me as Johnny from my channel named TheAverageJonny. However, the channel was not always a thing or an idea that I had when I was growing up. Of course, YouTube wasn't a thing until I was about 8 years old. Nevertheless, I always had a ton of fun playing on old PCs our family used to have, and actually busted about a system or two. Yeah, what a price was paid for having a curious child trying to mess around on a computer with no internet. I would play pre-installed games, and one day I decided to fit around with the good old Windows Movie Maker. I toyed around with pre-installed photos and made some cheap transitions and thought it was the coolest thing ever. I knew one day I was going to come back to this. A couple of years ago, I took a YouTube account that had been sitting for almost 10 years, and one day in the summer of 2017, I decided that I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to create a personal space for me and the things that I love. The question, however, was what exactly do I love that I want the world to see? This question rang in my head for quite some time. I started with a few videos that may have been some random Black Ops 3 Zombies live streams and some content related to WWE 2K series. Some of these videos became a hit, and I just kind of ran with it for a short amount of time. After all, creating those custom edges videos were quite enjoyable and was a terrific form of expression of creative freedom that I had on my channel. Mind the fact that this is before I even came up with a proper channel name. If you know what the original channel name was, then I know that you were a true OG. But back to the channel. One day while I was deciding what my next video would be about, I started replaying a childhood fan favorite of mine. That game would be called The Simpsons Hit and Run. This is a game that was released in 2003 and was most known for being a less intense GTA game with the Simpsons world slapped on it. Completing missions, races, side quests, and running over pedestrians in the most cartoony way possible became not only an enjoyable experience for me, but it also became a cornerstone of my childhood gaming experience. As a child, I never got to play many video games, so I spent time playing cheap plug-and-plays with tons of Nintendo games such as Super Mario, Contra, Elevator Action, Ice Climbers, Duck Hunt, and many others. Or as I mentioned moments ago, I would stick to the pre-installed PC games I had on the Windows XP. Wild Tangent, anyone? Well, even if I didn't have gaming consoles, doesn't mean I didn't have family members that did. After a visit with one of my cousins, he showed me his PlayStation 2 and showed a box for The Simpsons Hit and Run. My attention was fully caught, and my cousin was kind enough to allow me to play this soon-to-be legendary game. When I first played this game, when I got my hands on that PS2 controller, it just happened to turn out that I was pretty damn terrible. Okay, so maybe 6 years old wasn't my time for gaming. However, I would eventually come upon this game again a few years later, and thus, my Simpsons Hit and Run obsession has come to rise. I finally started to get the hang of this game, missions were finally getting completed, I finally understood the concept, I raged and screamed at various missions. I'm pretty sure you guys can guess which ones they are. Set to Kill, Fishy Deals, Never Trust a Snake, Alien Autopsy Part 3, Not the Cola Wars, and all the Cletus missions with various others. I finally made it to the end of the game and I thought my journey had ended there, but oh, it didn't stop there. Not even close. Listen to me when I say that I was obsessed with this game. You guys need to understand that I would not let this game go. I replayed the mission several times and I even cut school to play this game, and I say that with a lot of shame. Well, not fully, just a little bit. I'll explain why later. Eventually I pushed myself to finally hitting 100% of the game after replaying the missions numerous times. Now this is a task that took me months to complete because, mind you, I was still just a little kid and got frustrated and impatient easily. Look at me acting like anything has changed.
Oh, put it on the opposite side of the school bus. Intelligent. I'm gonna cry.
Anyways, eventually I would complete the Simpsons Hit and Run, and I was kind of upset that there wasn't much reward for hitting 100% of the game. I mean, I guess a gold sticker isn't that bad, but come on, it could have been a little bit more than that. But, of course, that didn't stop me from loving this for what it was. So before I really get into the story about how my love for The Simpsons Hit and Run came about, I'm just going to give a brief summary about what the game actually was. The Simpsons Hit and Run is a GTA-styled free-roaming game with walking, platforming, and driving in order to complete a series of 49 storyline missions, where the story follows the Simpsons characters trying to solve mysteries to save Springfield. The playable characters consist of Homer, Bart, Lisa, Marge, and Apu, with their own unique story going on in each level. The 7 levels also included bonus missions, street races, collectibles, and gags that make several references to the Simpsons show. Very basic stuff, but was enjoyable for many, including myself. With this game being one of my first adventure games in a somewhat open world, I knew that I would be in for a new experience that would change my perspective on video games forever. The game was very straightforward, with most of it being assisted through arrows pointing in the directions that you must go in, and a tutorial mission that helps you understand the basic concept. This is a game that most people would be able to get the hang of easily. My first time ever completing the game was quite tricky, as I was still new to the genre, and therefore I still struggled on a number of missions that still required me to take up to 15 retries, maybe even more. Sometimes it's still a little difficult to fully pinpoint what exactly enticed me into playing this for such a long time. Maybe it was the cartoony nature of the game. Maybe it was my somewhat familiarity with the Simpsons show. Whatever it was, I found myself to be addicted to the game. I would play it for hours trying to solve everything about it, from looking for those damn collector cards to attempting to beat the missions head on. There was a bit of a problem, however. You see, I had this game on the PlayStation 2, and the thing is, back when we needed something called a memory card, you know, those little things that you're supposed to slot into the console and it would save all your data. The reason it was difficult to acquire it was because of the fact that me and my brother got the PS2 as our first console and barely understood the concept of memory cards or where to even get them. They weren't exactly expensive to buy, but for my family, they would just be a hassle to ask for. So what would happen is I would be stuck playing the same 2 levels because that is pretty much all the time I had to get to before my mom would tell me to call it quits and shut off the game. And since we didn't have the memory card, the game would reset back to the tutorial mission in level 1, and I had to deal with it every single time. But in a way, this would become a blessing of some sorts. It would help me learn different strategies and increase my knowledge of how the game works in order to play it more effectively. Finally, sometime later, perhaps 6 months to a year after getting the PS2, we were finally able to get ourselves a memory card. Hooray! Woo! Now, it was time to get down to business with this game. I eventually found myself reaching level 3, and I couldn't possibly explain my excitement for this. My quest to complete the Simpsons hit and run was now much more possible to do. I was finally able to complete the street races, bonus missions, and other side quests because now I didn't feel the pressure of not being able to save the game, causing me to just try to rush through the story missions. The experience just got 10 times better with me now being able to enjoy more of the platforming, kicking people, running over people with the car, and causing mass destruction around Springfield. I know that sounds very chaotic of me, perhaps psychotic, but hey, don't knock it till you try it. The story was actually getting better, and the feeling of finally progressing in the game made me fall in love with the game even more. You even have to give credit where credit is due. The story was very fun and interesting, along with the fact that the game retained all the original voice actors. I mean, what more can you really ask for? Although I had many moments where I would rage at the game and on occasions let out a couple screams, I can definitely say this game had me fully hooked. So hooked, in fact, that it actually turned into an addiction. And here is where it gets a little serious. So okay, let's get ready now. This is where things are going to get a little uncomfortable, a little weird, a little strange, and a little scary, I have to say. After completing all the story missions for the first time ever, I thought that I had done it all. I had felt so accomplished and thought that I could finally put the game down and move on with my life. It was time to focus on more important things. However, something in my head kept ringing in my head. I had fallen in love with the game so much and received a large amount of enjoyment from it that I didn't want to put it down. I didn't want the fun to end. Like, there was an empty feeling in myself once I had finished the storyline missions. I thought about the fact that I had not completed the game 100%. In fact, I probably only completed about 60% of it. So then my mind got this brilliant idea that maybe I can go back. Maybe the fun doesn't have to end. Rather than just going back and finishing the stuff I haven't done before, I instead told myself to reset the game entirely and complete everything from scratch. But this time, hit that 100%. Now keep in mind that I am still no expert in this game, so fully completing this would take me some time. I spent hours and hours on this game soon after trying to finish it inside out. I wouldn't want to do anything else besides come home from school and play The Simpsons in a run. I became quite greedy with the PS2, as well as I was even starting to show some signs of being a brat on occasions. Something in me became so obsessed with the game that I got told myself that maybe rather than waiting to come home from school, I can instead stay home from school and just play the game for as long as I can. Yes, it's true, I skipped school to be able to spend time completing this, and the only reason no one knew is because my parents worked from morning to afternoon, that they wouldn't even notice that I haven't even gone to school. I was neglecting schoolwork and lying about not going to school. My grades were dropping, and I would not shy away from this anytime soon. This became a major problem. Yes, it was a horrible thing to do. I know. It's quite shameful when I look back and realize I let a video game do this to me. Eventually, my family caught on to what was happening with my attendance, and I was straightened out since then. The issue started to resolve, and I eventually learned to pace myself and to be patient about completing the game. I was then able to finally hit 100% after weeks and weeks of completing all the possible tasks in the game. I was just a step further to confirming my cured addiction. I'm just thankful it was more of a phase thing than it was a long-term problem that I was having. To this day, I can't entirely figure out why this game dragged me away from the real world in such a manner. It may just be a mystery that I can never solve. With all that being said, hopefully you can now get an idea of how much I really love this game. But I do have to say I never had imagined that this game would not only be cemented in my childhood, but would also be a cornerstone of my soon-to-be YouTube channel almost a decade later. So now you know about my love for the game and a little bit about my history with being fascinated with video editing. When it comes to my video editing history, I never really got the hang on what it was like to have a decent video editing software, mostly because my computers were low tier and not really able to handle the heavy tasks that come with video editing and rendering. However, in 2017, I bought my first gaming laptop that I mostly wanted to use for video editing. It was more than capable of completing the job, so why not? To sum up how I first started, I had a couple of videos based on random gameplay and some commentary based on the WWE 2K series. I was finally starting to get the hang of commentary and editing, so it was time to do something that I thought would be a lot of fun. The problem was, what the hell am I supposed to do a video about? Yes, I was stuck for quite some time. So the only thing I can really do is just continue watching some of my favorite content, my favorite channels, and continue to observe the different type of styles of different content creators. One of my favorite things to watch was top 10 videos. My interest in top 10s would vary in different subjects, from creepy videos to mysteries and video games. One day, an old game of mine started to ring in my head. I guess I don't need to say what game that is, right? I started to become curious and started searching for any kind of top 10 relating to one of my favorite games in the Simpsons hit and run, but to no avail. After a lot of evenings spent searching for anyone with a top 10 on this game, I finally realized what I wanted to do for my first video. It was clear that my first top 10 would be about the Simpsons hit and run. So it was settled, and I began to record gameplay for the top 10 hardest missions in the game. The video itself wasn't entirely done well, I have to say. Video quality wasn't that great, audio quality was not recorded on an actual mic, and commentary lacked actual scripting. During this time, I wasn't too heavily focused on this. I mean, I only had a few hundred subscribers from WWE videos, so who would really care, right? I decided to just run with this and leave it the way it was. The video was finally uploaded in December of 2017. The video itself sat on the channel for quite a while, and I continued to make other side content. It was only pulling in about 200 views in a few months. It was kind of expected because the video was poorly made, and it was mostly made to jumpstart my new top 10 phase on this channel. However, in the spring of 2018, the top 10 started hitting a spike in viewership, and comments were starting to flood my notifications. I was astonished at what was happening, because I never thought that I can create a video that would hit over 10,000 views. Comments were starting to hit praising the video, and people feeling nostalgic about the game were hitting me up with comments. Eventually, I would start to receive community requests for me to create more top 10 videos about the game. When receiving these requests, I started to think again about how I couldn't find a YouTuber who made top 10 videos about The Simpsons hit and run. I thought to myself, maybe this can be my calling. I mean, think about it. Why wouldn't I discuss a game that I was so in love with when I was a kid? It gave me an addiction, for damn sake. Maybe this would be my line of content. This is my moment to shine. So there it was. I started uploading videos about The Simpsons hit and run and many of the different topics relating to the game. The lists were becoming a hit, and my channel began to increase in popularity. People were enjoying the content and were thanking me for taking them on the nostalgia trip. I cannot tell you how good it felt to know that you were responsible for something that was becoming loved. And so there we had it. This was The Average Johnny, the guy responsible for the Simpsons hit and run top 10 videos. There was such an amazing fulfillment that I was getting when I was working on these top 10s, mostly because I was digging into a game that was so near and dear to me, and it made me overjoyed to know that I wasn't alone in loving this masterpiece. Revisiting memories from my childhood made me love my line of content creation, and I couldn't be happier with the content I was putting out. I know most YouTubers cannot admit this. Of course, it feels nice to make some money off of doing something we love, and doing these videos while not making me rich did help me get out of some tough spots, and it helped me acquire the equipment that I always wanted. This channel was bringing me so much, from enjoyment to the things that I always wanted, and it was all because of a game that had once gotten me into trouble. Like, can you really believe that? Speaking of a YouTube channel, how could it have become what it was without the community that built around it, and the already existing community that was yet to bring even more to the table? The people that began to surround the Average Johnny channel were starting to become fans, and many would interact with me through comments and DMs on my social medias. Now, don't get me wrong, every YouTube channel will have that group of people that are either negative or hateful toward your content, and it happens. It's not really much to stress about. But for the people that were kind enough to leave positive comments and helpful feedback, they probably will never have any idea how they influenced the channel and how much they are the reason why I continue to go on to this day. Many of them being generous, sarcastic in the most playful of ways, which I freaking love, and straight out hilarious. I felt like I was building a great community on this channel. It's what made me even happier to be creating content for this community that expanded from different regions around the world. When I thought I was seeing it all, I came across a number of people who were commenting asking me if I had ever tried out any of the mods that were available for this game, since they knew I was playing on a PC. Like, mods? What are those? Mods were something that I completely was oblivious to and never even knew existed for the Simpsons Hit and Run. Apparently, I had been missing out on something incredible and I wasn't even aware of it. For those of you that don't know, mods are changes to the game that can make adjustments from missions, difficulty, textures, models, music, etc. As a result of being able to do this, people have done some crazy stuff. Like, seriously, look it up for yourself. It's amazing what people can do with this game. With mods being introduced to me, I was able to fall in love in a whole new way, and shortly afterward, I would do various live streams where I would try these mods out, while being able to interact with the Simpsons Hit and Run community that would give advice or troll me for being terrible at the game. A whole new experience revived my enjoyment for this game. Not only was I able to find out that there were many people that still love the game over a decade later, but I was introduced to some very creative content creators that found numerous ways to keep the game alive in such a tremendous fashion. The Simpsons Hit and Run community is one of the best that you will ever see. Trust me when I say that. To this day, we will all join together as we still live in hope of a Simpsons Hit and Run remaster. With a great community, amazing mods, and a channel that did a service to gamers that were feeling reminiscent of a nostalgic masterpiece, I feel like I have lived such an educational and enjoyable point in my YouTube career. All of this has led me to one conclusion: I will always love this game for all of these reasons. So I get that after saying all these things that I've said, the question might still be ringing in people's heads. Why do you love The Simpsons Hit and Run so much? Just letting it all out. The Simpsons Hit and Run is the reason why I love these adventure games. The Simpsons Hit and Run is the reason why I got way more interested in video games than I ever thought I could have. It's the reason why I have a YouTube channel where I stream and I get to talk to people who have been very caring and generous and just amazing people. It's the reason why I have this load of equipment right in front of me right now as I'm speaking to this microphone that I would have never had if it probably wasn't for this game. Who knows what kind of butterfly effect would have happened if this game had never existed in my life. I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy for basically saying that I love this game to death, but I really cannot avoid saying it. The Simpsons Hit and Run may be seen by other serious gamers as a basic repetitive action adventure game that was a blatant ripoff of Grand Theft Auto, but for myself, it was one of the first games to introduce me to the free roaming genre with a simple yet fun story and basic mechanics that made this an enjoyable experience for a young child like myself. Although this game would give me an addiction that I eventually overcame, this title brought me my YouTube channel that is the reason I was able to acquire the equipment that I always wanted, and brought me a loving community that loves this game as much as I do, along with some brilliant content creators that are doing everything to keep this game alive. After a 4-year reign as the centerpiece of my YouTube channel, I felt that I needed to give a well-deserved tribute to a game that did so much for me in terms of my experience playing video games, and I couldn't be more appreciative for it. I hope that answers some questions to those that have asked me how I never got bored of it, or why I love this game title so much. It's a game that is super simple, but will be something that will always be cemented in my childhood and now adulthood for the rest of my life. Thank you guys if you made it all the way to the end of the video. I know it was a lengthy one, but anything to give a good tribute. If you have been a part of this community, you have my gratitude. This has been TheAverageJonny, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.